The truth is the wicked's weakness. Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachakwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. And double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. I wanted to do a video on a statement that was left on this monument. And one thing the so-called elites like to do is they like to hide things from people. And one of their main source of powers, besides lies and deceptions, is secrecy. If you was born in a society, going to school, they would teach you that the founding fathers of this country were, a bunch of so-called white people, Spaniards, English, Dutch mercenaries, Christopher Columbus. Furthermore, pushing you people further into the dark. America does not raise people to teach them to research things. They teach people to accept what they are told or what they are taught, and thus people grow up believing and living a lie. So a lot of people, when they see this monument, they really believe that Freemasons were the founding fathers of America and not Christians, in which Christians were not the founding fathers of America either. Okay. There were a nation of people living on the soils of America before this land was even called America. Okay, before this land was even called America, there were people living over here in this land. So again, the power of these so-called white people, it's not the truth. The power of these devils lies in deceptions, lies, and secrecy. They depend on the ignorance of the people in order to stay upon them. Thus, that's where you get the saying, ignorance is bliss. When you don't know something, when you become oblivious to something, you start to become complacent and believe in it. Now, if we come over here to the book of Psalms, chapter 58, verse 3, it says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. First off, let's figure out who the wicked is. Because Job 9 and 24 tells you who the wicked is. Okay, Job chapter 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Now, it goes even deeper than that. Let's go to the book of Genesis real quick, and then I'll finish up in Job. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 27, and verse 30. It might be verse 31. Okay, and I'm going to just get straight to the point. This is going into the story of when Jacob, who was a brown-skinned man with woolly hair, received a blessing from Isaac, as well as Esau, who was a pale-skinned man with reddish hair, reddish brownish hair. So this is going into how Jacob and Esau got their blessings. So we're going to focus on the blessing that Esau received from his brother Isaac. Okay, so let me see. This is the book of Genesis. I'll just start at verse 38. Genesis chapter 27, verse 38. It says, "And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept." Okay. "And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth." What does it mean by the fatness of the earth? It means that Esau and his descendants would have control over the whole earth. Okay? That's what it means by Esau's dwelling would be the fatness of the earth. Okay? And of the dew of heaven from above. Do they not have satellites and outer space bunkers up there in so-called space within the ozone layer of the earth? Okay? "And by thy sword shalt thou live and serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck." Okay, and yeah, okay, the descendants of Esau, they live by the sword. Okay, just look at what America does. They go around bombing people, bombing nations, stealing their resources. This is how America gets their oil, their lithium, their REMs, which is the acronym for rare earth metals or rare earth minerals. You know, this is how they get their precious stones. This is how they get certain kinds of metal. This is how they get gold, silver, you know. Which a part of Esau's sword is being able to tell lies. You know, because poison can be a sword. A spiritual one as well as a physical one. But you know, if we go back here to the book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. Okay, Job chapter 9, verse 24, it says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked." Okay, so the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So who has control over the whole earth today? The so-called elites. Through what? Through their monetary banking system. Through their monetary banking system, they're able to control these different countries through what the world calls presidents and mayors and senates and congressmen. Okay? It says, "He covereth the faces of the judges thereof, if not where and who is he?" And the judges is speaking about the ancient prophets of old. Okay? Daniel was a judge. And a matter of fact, Daniel goes back to Danya'ala, which means judge of the power. Okay? But you know, Daniel was a judge, you know. You know, there's you know, in the book of Judges, you know, there were many judges like Ehud, Barak, you know, Gideon. You know, King David was also a judge. King Solomon was also a judge. Okay, but the main judge is who? Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. So when it says he covereth the faces of the judges thereof, that's talking about painting over, iconoclasm. But you know, that's a topic for another time. You know, the dark skinned images of the disciples, the prophets, the judges, Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, they were all painted over during the Renaissance period. So you can better understand. But the key point here is that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay? So we know the wicked to be the descendants of Esau. You know, Esau, who was blessed with the fatness of the earth. So in this day and age, who has control over the whole earth? The descendants of Esau, the Edomites. Okay? The so-called elites, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. This is the wicked that Job 9:24 speaks of, as well as Psalms 58 verse 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Okay? And this right here is a lie. Because the founding fathers of this land is neither the Freemasons nor the Christians. Okay? So they said that the founding fathers of America were Freemason, not Christian. This is a lie right here, you know. Furthermore, if we come over here, I just want to get one more scripture real quick, you know, which the brother already posted it, but I just want to go to it myself. Nahum chapter 1 verse 3. Okay, it says, no, my bad. Nahum, I'll just get it right here. Chapter 3 verse 1. Okay, Nahum chapter 3 verse 1. It says, woe to the bloody city. It is, here, let me just click on it, okay? It says, woe to the bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. And this country is full of lies and robbery. Because this land was stolen. It was not founded upon. It was stolen. And these are some of the lies that the Edomites have put out there to have people believe that America was founded, you know, upon their nation of people. Okay? The prey, the part of not, in which we are the prey. We are the prey in this society, you know. You know, every nation basically makes money off of us. Okay? And then, of course, Isaiah. Let's get it in Isaiah, and then I'll continue on to the next tab. But, you know, there's a point to be made. Okay? Okay, let's see. This is Isaiah chapter 29, verse 15. Okay. It says, woe unto them that seek deep. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord. And their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us, who knoweth us, right? Their works are in the dark. Okay, that's a part of their power. Secrecy, lies, deceit. This is what they depend upon to keep people in the dark. Okay? But wait a minute. If we come over here to the book of Luke, chapter 8, verse 17, it says this. It says, for nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. So whatever is secret, according to the words of Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, in the book of Luke chapter 8 verse 17, whatsoever is secret, it's going to come to light. So let the light shine upon these lies. Now, if we come over here, right, this is going into Louis de Torres, okay, and he was not Jewish. He was an Edomite who called himself Jewish. But Louis de Torres, okay, he was an interpreter. He knew how to speak multiple languages. So if we come over here, right, let's scroll down here. It says Louis de Torres. I'm gonna just go ahead and read this because all this is really good info. Louis de Torres was employed by Christopher Columbus as an interpreter on his first voyage to the New World. Prior to this, de Torres held a position with Juan Kakan, governor of Murcia, a province where there was a large number of Jews. It says, as a Hebrew interpreter. Because he was Jewish, this was during the era of the Inquisition. It was necessary for him to convert to Catholicism, which he did the day before the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria set sail on August 2nd, 1492. The voyage also coincided with the expulsion of all the Jews from Spain. Okay, and it's not talking about, the expulsion of Edomites. This is talking about actual Israelites being expelled from Spain. And a matter of fact, some of the first crop of slaves came from Europe. Okay, we always got to remember that. Some of the first crop of slaves, which were Israelites, came from Europe on slave ships, which arrived here in Jamestown, Virginia of the United States of America in, I believe, 1619. I believe it was 1619, but the first crop of slaves appeared over here from Europe on slave ships in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. But anyways, these were actual Israelites that were expelled from Spain. Okay, this is not talking about Edomites, because Edomites were still living in Spain even after Christopher Columbus and Louis de Torres left the country. So it says, because okay, and when I say Israelites, I speak of the true Hebrew Israelites, which are the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians. Okay, and there were so-called black and there were so-called blacks and some Latinos living in Spain around those times. Okay, remember, we used to rule Europe before we were taken out of power by the Edomites, which were calling themselves Spaniards and conquistadors and the English. And when I say Edomites, I'm speaking of so-called white people. But moving on, it says, because he was versed in Hebrew, because Louis de Torres was versed in Hebrew, Aramaic, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Latin, and some Arabic, Columbus had thought he would be helpful upon their arrival. Their arrival where though? To the New World. Now here they mention Cuba. Cuba was one of the many places Christopher went to. But we also got to remember, Cuba was not the only country that Christopher Columbus went to. Okay? He also came over here to the Americas. It says, especially useful would be his knowledge. Especially useful would be Louis de Torres' knowledge of Hebrew and Aramaic. Okay, which which Aramaic is just another form of Hebrew. Okay? As Columbus fully expected to encounter Asian descendants of the last tribes of Israel. Okay? After reaching Cuba, Columbus, believing they had arrived in Asia, sent detours on a mission to locate the great cities and riches he had anticipated would be there to find the great Khan of Tartary. It says after traveling for some 60 miles, Detours and his companions found an Indian village with 50 huts and approximately 100 inhabitants. They were greeted with friendliness and by native women who kissed their hands and feet. Okay? And when you watch that movie Pocahontas, they go all into it. Okay? The movie Pocahontas is all about how the English Dutch mercenaries, the Spaniards and the conquistadors came over here, because our people, Gad, our people, like the so-called North American Indians, they weren't the only tribes living over here. We also got to remember the Seminole Indians from the tribe of Reuben, the so-called North American Indians from the tribe of Gad. We also got to remember the Taino Indians, which would be the so-called Puerto Ricans from the tribe of Ephraim. We also got to remember the Aztec Indians, which will be the so-called Mexicans. Okay? These are the native Indians that was living over here in this land, and each of these native tribes of the nation of Israel had broken up into their own tribes, like the Cherokee, the Choctaws, the Chickasaws. Okay, you had some called wet feet because they lived in swampy lands. Now I can't name them all, but I can name some. Okay, but these were the so-called natives of this land. So when the conquistadors and the Spaniards, which Columbus will be a so-called Spaniard, right? Even though he was really an Edomite, but the conquistadors and the Spaniards and the English Dutch mercenaries, they were greeted with great friendliness, and it tells you that. We can further confirm this if we go to the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 21. Okay, let's start at verse 20. The book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 20. It says, he, who's the he? The he in this case will be the Spaniards, okay? The Spaniards and the conquistadors that came over here. Because the English Dutch mercenaries did not necessarily just start off coming over here with the Spaniards, okay? The English Dutch mercenaries came over here after a war broke out between the so-called native Indians of this land and between the Spaniards and conquistadors. You see? But anyways, Psalms chapter 55, verse 20. He, the Spaniards and the conquistadors, okay, he put forth his hands against such as be at peace with them. And that's exactly what happened, okay? When the Spaniards and the conquistadors first came over here, they were greeted with great friendliness. Okay? It says he put forth his hands such as be at peace with them. Okay? So it says, and by native women who kissed their hands and feet. The tourist noted a strange custom of the Indians who would place one end of a burning leaf in their nostrils and inhale the vapors or place dried leaves into large cane pipes and inhale the smoke. This was the Europeans' first encounter with tobacco. So now you know where smoking tobacco comes from, which that's going off because you're not supposed to smoke and you're not supposed to vape. Now, inhaling vapors with your nose, I mean, it depends on what you're inhaling, because there are certain remedies and oils that you can place into humidifiers to humidify your house, to cleanse the air, that you can take deep breaths into. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're like, trying to inhale the smoke or whatever as some kind of ritual or to get high, then that's going off. But okay. But it says at this point there are radically conflicting versions of what became of the Taurus. Okay, one such version relates that he was granted land and several slaves, 5 adults and a child, okay, by a native chief, and married several daughters of local chiefs in order to cement alliances. Okay, so our people was giving our women to these Edomites in order to cement an alliance, and the scriptures speak against that. Okay, thou shalt not give, because the scriptures speak against that. We're not supposed to give our daughters unto a man of another nation. Thou shalt not give thy daughters unto a man of, you know what? I'll find it much quicker if I just go to Google and just type it in. Bible, thou shalt not give thy daughter unto a man of another. See if I can find it real quick. It's in the book of Deuteronomy, okay? So let's see. Give me a moment to look for this. Okay. And of course, the Lord was speaking concerning the Hittites and the Gershites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Okay. But this also includes the other nations as well. This also includes the Edomites. This includes the Ishmaelites, which are the Arabians. That includes the Elamites, which are the East Indians. This includes the Moabites, which are the Chinese people. The North Koreans, which are also Moabites. The South Koreans, which are also Moabites. The Japanese people, which are the Ammonites. The Hawaiians, which are the Japhites. And of course, the Lord had already listed a bunch of Hamitic people. Okay, such as the Canaanites. The Canaanites are they descend from Ham, which will be the Africans. Okay, so the Lord was speaking concerning these heathens. So Deuteronomy 7 verse 2, it says, when the Lord thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them. So really, the so-called North American Indians, they were not supposed to make an alliance or with these Spaniards or conquistadors. They were supposed to see them as a threat and be wary of them. But they didn't do that, you know. They wanted to make peace with them. It says, and when the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, that power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them. Ain't that what the so-called native Indians of this land did? Isn't that what the so-called Puerto Ricans, the so-called Mexicans, the Seminole Indians, and the so-called North American Indians? Isn't that what they did? Didn't they make an alliance? And not only did they make an alliance with their enemy, they also gave our women unto them. Okay, it says, nor show mercy unto them. Verse 3, okay, it says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. What is that talking about? Okay, it says, thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Okay, so we were not supposed to make marriages unto these other nations. And here's why the Lord told us not to make marriages unto these other nations. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. Okay, and you know, we have done that before in the past. Okay, Jake will fall so in love with a woman of another nation that he would literally begin to take on the customs of her nation. He'll start worshiping her gods. Furthermore, turning away himself from serving Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So that's why the Lord told us not to marry unto the women of these other nations, because we can have concubines. You know, we can have sex with the women of the other nations. But the moment we start being, because the word marriage means to be joined to. You know, well, when we start to be joined unto these women spiritually, in a sense to where, you know, we start to turn away and start worshiping their customs and keeping the customs of their gods and of their nation, then we start to provoke the Lord to wrath. Because now we're not serving Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai no more. We're serving the gods of the other nations. But you know, I just wanted to point that out there. That's why the Lord told us not to marry, you know, our sons unto their daughters, unto the women of these other nations. You know, and the reason why we're not supposed to give our women unto the men of these other nations, it's because, well, for one, the man carries the seed, you know. The reason why a woman is supposed to be given to an Israelite man is so she could bring forth more Israelites. Because it takes an Israelite man to give birth to more Israelites. Okay, so if we was to give our women if we was to give our women onto a man of another nation, then she's going to give birth to more people that are of another nation. She's going to give birth to heathens. Okay, if she's an Israelite woman and she gets pregnated by a heathen man, she's going to give birth to more heathens, because the man carries the seed. So you better best believe that during this time, Edomites were being born from the so-called native women of our nation. Okay, so during this time, when the Spaniards, when our women was being given unto these Spaniards, Okay, these women were being pregnated. They were being they ended up being pregnant with Edomite children. So our people went off. You know, we were not supposed to give our women unto the men of another nation, but our people did it anyway. Okay, so that's pretty much the point there. You know, the Israelite woman was to give birth to Israelites by having sex with an Israelite man, because it takes an Israelite man to give birth to an Israelite or to Israelites. The man carries the seed. So your nationality is based on who your father is. So if your father is a so-called white man whose lineage goes back to Edom, then guess what? You're an Edomite because your father's an Edomite. Okay, and guess what? Your father's father is an Edomite, you know, because the man carries the seed. So if your father's lineage on your father's side goes back to a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native Indian, then you're an Israelite. Because your father's lineage on your father's side goes back to a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native Indian. So there were a lot of tares, you know, there were a lot of tares that was being born around this time. Okay? Our women was being married onto these heathen men, these Spaniards and conquistadors, which were Edomites. And so our women was having sex with these Edomite men and was giving birth to Edomites. But on moving on, it says eventually he was granted a yearly pension by the king and queen of Spain and named a royal agent, living a long and prosperous life in Cuba. The other version states that when Columbus set sail back for Spain on January 4th, the Taurus was left behind with 39 other crew members, all of whom were massacred at the hands of the natives, purportedly as retaliation because the Spaniards had abducted native women. Okay? You know, so you know, now if we come over here, you know, this is going even further more into Louis D. Ferris. Okay, you know, so we're just going to scroll down and get right to the point here. Okay, Sierra Leone. Well, now you know where Sierra Leone comes from. So here, Leo, it says Louis de Torres, you know, 1943. The only known, which Louis de Torres was not a Jew, okay? He was an Edomite. But it says the only known Jew on Columbus' voyage was Louis de Torres, though he had to be baptized just the day before sailing. Torres was born Yosef ben Halevi or Levi Hivri. Joseph, the son of Levi the Hebrew. Okay. It says Torres knew Hebrew, Aramaic, and some Arabic. It says Simon Wiesenthal speculates cells of hope that after the landfall in America, the first words addressed to the natives were Hebrew. So the first words that was addressed to the natives were Hebrew. Okay. It says on the medal, the the Arawaks are shown bearing gifts to Columbus and Torres. As Columbus wrote to his benefactor, Louis de Centigel, they were so unsuspicious and so generous with what they possessed that no one who had not seen it would believe it. They never refused anything they asked for. They even offered it themselves, and so showed much love that they would give their very hearts. Okay? It says, Torres was one of the first European settlers in the New World. When Columbus set out to return to Spain on January 4th, 1943, Luis de Torres was one of 39 men left behind on Hispaniola, today Haiti, and Dominican Republic. Sadly, when Columbus returned to the island later that year, he found that the group had been wiped out. Other stories tell that Torres settled in Cuba. The true fate of Luis de Torres remains a mystery. Okay, so the point is that after it says the key point here is that after the landfall in America, the first words addressed to the natives were Hebrew. Okay, so now you must ask yourself, why did Christopher Columbus bring a Hebrew interpreter with him when he first came to the land? Well, the answer is simple. Because the so-called North American Indians, the so-called native Indians, I speak of the so-called Puerto Ricans, the Taino Indians, the Mexicans, the Aztec Indians, okay, the Seminole Indians, and the so-called North American Indians, which have broken up into many different tribes. They were all speaking Hebrew. Now, why is that? Because they're Hebrew Israelites. Okay? The so-called native Indians that once ruled this land, okay, they were speaking Hebrew. That's why the first words that came from Luis de Torres' mouth was Hebrew. Because the so-called native Indians of this land were speaking Hebrew. And why is that? Because the so-called native Indians of this land are Hebrew Israelites. Okay? They're Hebrew Israelites. Now, I perceive that Luis de Torres, he could have been a Jake. Okay? Now, he could have been a Jake, but who knows, Either way it goes, this man, he could speak many different languages. But anyways, the point is that the founding fathers of America were neither Freemason nor Christians. It was really the Hebrew Israelites. Okay? And the Hebrew Israelites consist of the so-called Negro. And by the way, when we say so-called Negro, we speak of the southern tribe, which would be Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Of the tribe of Judah, you get the so-called Negroes. Of the tribe of Benjamin, you get the so-called Jamaicans, or they are also known as the West Indians. Okay? And of the tribe of Levi, we get who? We get the Haitians. So the Hebrew Israelites consist of the so-called Negro, And then we also have the Latinos, okay? The Dominicans, they would be of the Latino tribes from the tribe of Simeon. The Cubans, okay? The Cubans would be of the Latino tribes, which would be from the tribe of Manasseh, okay? The Guatemalans to Panamanians would be of the Latino tribes from the tribe of Zebulon. Okay, I believe the Argentinians to Chileans, which would be of the Latino tribes from the tribe of Naphtali. I believe they're from the tribe of Naphtali. Okay, you know, and I'm just giving you some examples, you know, of some of the Latino tribes. You know, you also got you also have the Colombians to the Uruguayans. You know, they're also Israelites. You know, they're also Latinos. They're also Israelites. Then you also have your native Indian tribes. You know, like the Seminole Indians from the tribe of Reuben, the Mexicans from the tribe of Issachar. They was known as the Aztec Indians. You know, you also had the the Seminole Indians from the tribe of Reuben. You also had the North American Indians from the tribe of Gad. Then you also had the Puerto Ricans, who were known as the Taino Indians from the tribe of Ephraim. You know. Oh yeah, the Colombians to Uruguayans, I believe, would be from the tribe of Asher. There we go. Asher, yeah, Asher, which goes back to the Hebrew Ashar, which means happy is he. So, you know, and the Colombians to Uruguayans, they will also be of the Puerto Rico. They will also be of the Latino tribes. So, the Hebrew Israelites would consist of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians. Okay? And the you know, don't get me wrong, you also had some Latino tribes living over here in the Americas as well. So this land was ultimately founded and was owned and ruled by the Hebrew Israelites that was of Latino and Native Indian descent. And what happened? Well, when the Spaniards and the conquistadors first came over here, they made peace treaties with them, like it tells you in the book of Psalms. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. The book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 20. They made peace treaties with them, but then they broke every one of those peace treaties and was secretly killing off the so-called natives of this land. Psalms chapter 55, verse 20. He had put forth his hands such as be at peace with them. The so-called natives of this land was at peace with the Spaniards and the conquistadors, like I've read in both of these excerpts right here. Okay, the so-called natives of this land was at peace with them. It says he had broken his covenant. Yeah, the covenant, the alliance that he made, that the Spaniards and the conquistadors made with the natives of this land. He had broken all of his covenants. Okay. Verse 55, verse 21, it says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. You know, it tells you in the book of Sirach, you know, the 12th chapter, which I'm gonna get that next. It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. You know, His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. You see that? So his words were softer than oil. Meanwhile, he was thinking about how to overthrow these. You know, when the Spaniards came over here, they came humbling like a lion. You know, but secretly they were plotting how to overthrow the natives of this land and put the remaining survivors in slavery. So let's go to Sirach chapter 12, verse. Okay, Sirach chapter 12, verse 10. It says, "Never trust thine enemy." Right? The conquistadors, the Spaniards, and the English Dutch mercenaries, they're all enemies. They're all Edomites, and they are our main enemies on this planet. They are our adversaries. So we're not supposed to trust them. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. You know? Because I'm pretty sure it's much more to the story than just, the Spaniards abducting Israelite woman. Okay, they probably found out that the blankets they were given was laced with smallpox. You know, people was dying from diseases, and they probably found out that it came from the Spaniards. So they went to go slaughter whoever was living amongst our people. They went to go slaughter them Spaniards. Okay, because trust me, the devil, he's not going to give you everything. You know, he's going to put some truth out there, but then he's going to mix some lies in there. Ecclesiastes 12 and 11. Though he humble himself, right? Though he come over here peaceably, talking about peace, and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. Because the devil, he's not going to come up to you as the devil. He's going to come up to you with a smile on your face. He's going to pretend to be nice to you, shake your hand, ask you how you doing. He might even try to start a conversation with you. But secretly, he's thinking about how to further destroy you, how to ruin your life, how to overthrow your rulership, your establishment, your settlement. And though thou shalt be unto him, and thou shalt be unto him as thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Okay, verse 12. It says, "Set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place." And that's what our people did. Our people allowed these Spaniards to live amongst them. And now look where we're at. We're living in reservations. We're living in the ghettos. We're on the bottom. Meanwhile, this man is at the top, and he don't give a damn about the situation of our people. "Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat." Come on, man. "And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith." Well, there you go. Okay. Verse 13. "Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts?" Right, because ultimately these conquistadors and Spaniards, they're also known as the serpent in the Bible. So the so-called natives of this land during this time, they were known as the so-called natives according to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, the so-called natives during this time would have been known as charmers, charming unto these serpents. And guess what? They ended up getting bitten. Now look at them. They got plagued with scarlatina, typhus, typhoid, smallpox, chickenpox. Okay, because they got bitten by a poisonous serpent. So one that go off So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? Verse 15. For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. And that's what these devils did. They saw that our people were dying off by smallpox, and they wasted no time in finishing our people off. It says, okay, verse 16, it says, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. And that's what these Spaniards did, man. You know, they came over here speaking sweetly, like it tells you in the book of Psalms 55 and 20. You know, or 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. But at the end of the day, what was in his mind? War was in his mind. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. You see what I mean, man? Okay, if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. Right. That's my point exactly, you know. And we were in adversity when we went to war with Edom. And guess what? He did not hesitate to overthrow us when he saw that we was at a disadvantage. So that's pretty much all I wanted to read there. Lord's will, you brothers were edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai. But then I'm going to say Shalom is on to the next one.